This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Perbix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. And welcome into episode number 86 of the Huskies Warming House Podcast. I'm Noah Grant, joined only by myself today here on this Monday, November 8th. Excited to have all of our listeners with me wherever you're listening. I would imagine maybe Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, but nonetheless, happy to have all of you with me. A little bit of a different show for just only this week here. We do have some men's hockey guests that will be joining me in the second half of the show. So what does that mean for the first half? Well, it's going to be some of the regular portions of the show that you're familiar with, the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. We've got some information related to some college hockey and NHL news as well. And then I'm probably going to talk for maybe about 15 to 20 minutes, no longer than that, I would imagine, about some men's hockey, some women's hockey, and a little bit of notes about the Minnesota Wild and how they've been doing as well. Like I mentioned, this will be the only time that this show will be combined, if you will, with the Healthy Scratch interview segment, in which we have two freshman hockey players joining us, so stay tuned for that one as well. And then next Sunday, we should have a relatively normal release time for the next couple of weeks at least. It's going to be Alex Micheletti, son of Pat Micheletti, that's going to be joining me co-hosting the show, while Nick Maxon is out with other duties in his job and employment opportunities. So without further ado, we're going to start with CenterIceView News and Notes and the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup. CenterIceView News and Notes. CenterIceView provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey, from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to CenterIceView.com. Starting off this week's Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup, St. Cloud State men's hockey back in action in the NCHC for the first time since the spring of last year, getting their first taste this last weekend, coming away unscathed in Colorado Springs, although it was a little hairy on Friday night, but it was a sweep over the Colorado College Tigers. The Huskies have not lost in regulation at Colorado College since, I believe, the mid-2010s, and that trend continued. Jami Krannila continues his tear, scoring with minutes to play in regulation on Friday. He tied that hockey game at 2 and then buried his own rebound in the short side glove to end that game in overtime. A great win for the team there. Micah Miller tallying a goal in that game. Kevin Fitzgerald and Seamus Donahue had 2 assists apiece, and Kyler Kupka and David Rennick had a single assist. Good to see David Rennick on the assist point tally. Rennick was also brilliant, stopping 32 of 34 shots in that win. On Saturday, the Huskies continued the trend in a little more dominant fashion on the road. 4-1 victory for them. Zach Okabe and Kevin Fitzgerald earning back-to-back goals in period 3 to seal off that win. Nolan Walker scoring, as well as Micah Miller tallying his second of the weekend. Good to see him on the scoreboard once again. Walker and Miller each score with under 3 minutes to play in that first period, and the lone Tigers goal for CC came in period number 2. Mason Salquist, Easton Brodzinski, Seamus Donahue, and Spencer Meyer each had an assist in that hockey game, and Kevin Fitzgerald, again, 2 assists for him. What a season he is having in his 5th year in a Huskies uniform. I believe it's a 5-point weekend for him last weekend, and it's kind of been intriguing to listen that 4-point weekends, 3-point weekends, 5-point weekends, they've been kind of attributed to Kevin Fitzgerald and his name as of late. So just very impressive what he's been able to do on the ice this season. The Huskies limited Colorado College in night number 2 to 24 shots, and Rennick snagged all but one of those. The team improved to 8-2 on the season. They're 2-0 in conference play in the NCHC, and the team will head back home for a weekend series. They're going to host Nebraska Omaha this weekend, and Nebraska Omaha split with Miami, Ohio last weekend. I believe they lost in the first night and won in night number 2. Moving over to some women's hockey, they were also back in action. The team hosted Minnesota State Mankato at home after a tough weekend they had against Ohio State. We kind of talked about Mankato being a team that the Huskies, this group could probably handle, and they did. First, an eerily similar victory, 3-2 victory in overtime, propelling the Huskies on Friday. Taylor Lind setting up Mackenzie Bourgeray on a give-and-go shot for the game winner. Mackenzie Bourgeray and Taylor Lind both having fantastic seasons. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Lynn's second assist of the game and Bourgeray's second goal of that hockey game. Emma Gentry was the other lone goal scorer, and Yanina Newland also had an assist in that game. And it was sophomore netminder Sonia Hola stopping 36 of 38 shots. Looked very good this weekend. On Saturday, the women's team replicated the men's team. Again, identical, dominant 4-1 win. Yanina Newland and Emma Gentry scored in the second, and Addie Scribner got her first goal in the third, and Kenzie Wiley added, I believe, the second goal of her career, if I'm not mistaken. 6 different Huskies had assists, and Sonia Hola back in net. She was brilliant, stopping all but one of 39 shots that came her way. So talk about some good goaltending from the sophomore netminder. Team improving to 4-5-1 overall and 2-5-1 in conference play. So the women's team will be off this week while the men host Omaha, but then next week they've got a home and home. They're home on Friday and on the road Saturday, I believe, against the Minnesota Gophers. I know it's a home and home against the Gophers. I believe it's Friday, Saturday. I could be wrong on that one, so check your calendars for that. In our two biggest stories, a coach is out in Chicago and a player was traded, and both of them big headlines in the hockey world. Let's start in Chicago. They ousted head coach Jeremy Colleton after an 0-9-1 start to the season, and Chicago actually just getting their first win last night in overtime against Nashville after Colleton was ousted. Derek King, who was the current coach of the Chicago's AHL affiliate, he was the interim head coach and got his first win at the NHL level. Colleton was in his fourth campaign coaching the club, which entered Saturday's action ranked 29th in goals per game and 31st in goals against per contest this season. So just a difficult season on and off the ice in Chicago. In another place that we expected to have more turmoil than the Chicago Blackhawks, but somehow having less still, in Buffalo, it finally happened. Jack Eichel and his $10 million annual cap hit. He was sent to Vegas for currently injured forward Alex Tuck, prospect Peyton Krebs, a 2022 first-round pick that is top 10 protected, and a 2023 second-round selection. Vegas was also able to nab a third-round selection in that same 2023 draft in the deal. Right now, as it sits right now, Vegas, if everybody comes back healthy, of course they're missing Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone. They're also, I believe, $10.3 million over the cap if everyone is healthy. So how they're going to figure that out, I'm not quite sure. Reports state that the team is in favor of Eichel getting the next surgery that he wants, and the timeline is going to be roughly 4 to 5 months or so for his return. In other NHL news, the Arizona Coyotes at Sunday anyway have lost 11 straight, which was the second longest streak in NHL history. Only the 1944 New York Rangers were worse, 0-14-1 through their first 15 games before winning their 16th game of the season. In Chicago, Brad Aldrich's name was also X'd off the Stanley Cup at the request of Rocky Wirtz, contacting the Hall of Fame, and the NHLPA is under investigation for their actions regarding the Kyle Beach incident. In our final topic of the Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup, New York Rangers defenseman Adam Fox earned a 7-year extension worth $9.5 million annually. Another defenseman, a young D-man, getting his payday. Ottawa named young forward Brady Tkachuk as captain. Anaheim's Ryan Getzlaf passed Teemu Selanne for the Ducks' all-time points lead. Talk about a player who's been there for quite a while. And Nashville will retire netminder Pekka Rinne's number 35 in February as the winningest netminder in franchise history for the club. Finally, in injury news, Columbus's Patrick Laine, he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with an oblique strain. Vegas's William Karlsson is out 4 to 6 weeks as well with a broken foot. Washington's Anthony Mantha is out indefinitely after shoulder surgery. Montreal's Matthew Perreault is out 2 to 3 weeks after an eye injury that's been bothering him for quite some time, apparently. Toronto's Peter Mrazek, he's going to miss an additional 4 weeks. It's been a tough road for Mr. Mrazek up there in the 6. And Florida's Alexander Barkov is day-to-day. And in other news, New Jersey forward Miles Wood also underwent right hip surgery on Monday with no timetable for his return. And once again, welcome into the Huskies Warming House podcast. Noah Grant coming to you alone for probably, I would imagine, the only time in show history, and hopefully the only time in show history, but I guess we'll have to see where the journey takes us. But speaking of journeys, why don't we start off with a little bit of trivia here with some men's hockey. But before that, if anyone is curious, like we had mentioned earlier, Nick Maxon out for the next couple of Sundays, at least Sundays and Mondays, with his travel and his great opportunities that he's getting related to employment interviews and things like that, and things that he is getting ready to pursue post-college, as he is in the last year of his degree, and we're very excited for him. So that is why he's going to be missing for a little bit. But like I said, Alex Micheletti will be joining us next week. We're happy to have him and excited to bring him into the fold. Alex is just a fantastic human being. As far as myself, I've been doing good with nursing school and things like that. So yeah, it was a pretty tumultuous week in terms of all the work that had to be done last week, but we're here, we're thriving, and we're happy to have you listening here on the Huskies Warming House podcast. So like I said, back to some trivia. Involves some men's hockey here, and the question did read, Mark Hartigan was one of the best St. Cloud State men's hockey players ever to wear a Huskies uniform. He holds at least 6 records at the university. However, what single game record does he hold? He has 2 for the same feat, so either of those were fine. Give you a few seconds to think about that one, and it was actually at SCSU Buck, SCSU BUC, that was our winner, a first-time winner. Hartigan, he holds the Huskies records for goals in a career with 86, goals in a season with 37, points in a season with 75, and shorthanded goals in a season with 6. But the question answer that we were looking for were goals in a single period with 4. He also holds the record for fastest 4 goals in St. Cloud State history against UAA on February 15th, 2002 in the second period. Of course, coming close to him was Zach Okabe and his performance against Mankato in the holiday tournament about, what would it be, a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago, something like that. His kind of breakout campaign, his first 4 goals of the season. But congratulations to at SCSU Buck. We were happy to have you on the board as a trivia winner. Speaking of the men's hockey team, why don't we roll right on over to them and kind of what they have going on? Like we mentioned, it was a game on Friday night that, if I can pull my sheet up here, it was a game on Friday night that I don't know that the Huskies, I wouldn't say that they were, unprepared by any means. It was a good team win. This Colorado College team, what I'm trying to get at here, this Colorado College team, they don't strike me as a group that is going to be a bottom dweller or is a bottom dweller or will be a bottom dweller for very long in the NCHC. The way that they play, their structure, they're getting contributions up and down the lineup. But now I know that we had mentioned that they were a group that really doesn't score a whole lot, so a lot of their wins and opportunities have come in low-scoring games. For the most part, they had obviously the 5-3 win against BC a couple weeks ago, but most of their wins, 3-2, 3-1, 2-1, those sorts of things. So they are still a more defensive structured team. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Minnesota Wild in years past, if you will. But yeah, this is a group, especially with that beautiful building at Ed Robeson Arena, which the Huskies visited for the first time this weekend. They had a good crowd, and this program is suddenly, it feels like, trending in the right direction. So I would watch out for Colorado College, especially as the season goes along. They're only going to get better, not only this year, but moving into years later. So like we mentioned, first period was Micah Miller tallying from Kevin Fitzgerald and Kyler Koop to open the scoring. And then in the second period, CC gets on the board, and that was the lone tally of period number 2. So 1-1 entering period number 3. And then Colorado College on the power play scoring. It was Brett Chorsky tallying at 6:57 of period number 3. He was answered by Yami Krannelin. It started to be the Yami Krannelin show at the end of this game. 15:35 into period number 3 on the power play from Seamus Donahue and Kevin Fitzgerald to make that game 2-2. And then in overtime, it was just David Rennick feeding Seamus Donahue up to Yami Krannelin, who came in on the glove side, the right-hand side down the ice. Initial shot, nice save, got his own rebound and put it short side high over the glove. 3 minutes and 8 seconds into overtime to win that game for the Huskies. So a good road win, a good test in the NCHC. Thought it made them very prepared for what is to come in the NCHC, a good little opening test, if you will. And then they really they really took it to Colorado College on that Saturday night with that 4-1 victory. Nolan Walker scoring, as well as Micah Miller scoring, those goals both coming within the last 3 minutes of period number 1. Micah Miller's goal, actually a shorthanded goal from Kevin Fitzgerald. Mason Salquist and Eason Brodzinski tallying on the opener for the Huskies to make it 2-0 after 1. And then Jordan Biro, who actually had 2 goals on the weekend for the Colorado College Tigers, both of them coming in the second period of each game respectively. He was able to get on the board the lone goal for the Tigers to make it 2-1. And then just under 5 minutes into period 3, Zach Okabe from Kevin Fitzgerald once again. Seamus Donahue, a great weekend for him as well on the assist column, making it 3-1. And then just over halfway through the period, Kevin Fitzgerald found the back of the net in the goal column from Zach Okabe and captain Spencer Meyer to cap off that 4-1 win. Like I mentioned, David Rennick absolutely brilliant this weekend. And you talk about this Huskies team as we kind of look at the recap of what we've seen from this group so far. Kevin Fitzgerald, obviously, I don't know what he's been taking, but I want some of it because you look at it, 29.4% shooting percentage, 13 points on and 17 shots on goal, 5 goals, 8 assists in 10 games played for the fifth-year super senior, if you will. He is just having an otherworldly season, and the way he plays, his tenacity below the goal line. And you look at, those 8 assists. He's a guy that's he's not afraid to muck some barn, if you will, below the tops of the circles. Always hard in on the forecheck, always winning battles. It really, again, we talked so much about him and the Dave Shayak grease pan goals, and that extends beyond the net mouth and the grittiness that Kevin Fitzgerald brings. And he's just, in terms of the college hockey level and the Division I level, he's about as complete of a 200-foot player right now, I think, as you can imagine. This Huskies group didn't know if they were going to have him back for this season, and he just continues to be on another level. Speaking of another level, junior forward Yami Krannila, 6 goals, 4 assists for him, 10 points. Same number of shots with 17, but a 35.3 shooting percentage for him. You just, what more can you ask from a guy? Kind of interesting, both of these guys, right? 6 goals for Krannila, 3 power play goals for him, 5 goals for Fitzgerald, and 4 power play goals for Kevin out of those 5 goals he's scored. And we talk about the power play. I know it's skewed a little bit because of the St. Thomas series, but I don't care what team you are. When it comes to Division I hockey, 17 for 39. This Huskies hockey club at a 43.6% conversion percentage. That is, regardless, it's absurd. It's just absurd. There's no other way to put it. And a pretty good PK sitting at over 87%, killing all but 4 of their 32 penalty kills on the other side. So special teams wise, this Huskies group finding a lot of firepower on the offensive side and really good defensively too. And that's been the St. Cloud State hockey MO in the way that they develop a lot of players. Just the ability to defend, and also attack. The complete 200-foot player, the diamonds in the rough, if you will. And this Huskies group, I didn't know how they were going to be to start the season, but boy, they sure have returned to form very quickly, and hopefully they can keep that rolling into some tough NCHC contests, especially as we move through the year. Nolan Walker rounding out the top 3 in points, joined by Easton Brodzinski, Zach Okabe, and Seamus Donahue with 7 points each. Then you got a bunch of guys, Micah Miller with 5 points, including 4 goals and an assist this year. Great to see him in the goal column. There's a guy that we talked about, he was going to have to be one of those players that had to break out production-wise, one to, I think, kind of solidify his place in the lineup, but also just for a little bit of confidence for him and what he brings to the table and continuing that production. And Micah Miller having one fantastic senior season, 25 shots, I believe that sits 3rd on the team. Yeah, just trailing Nolan Walker by a single shot, and Vieti Miettinen, only 1 goal to his credit this year, 38 shots on goal for him, only a 2% shooting percentage. I got to imagine that's going to change if you have a guy that shoots that much, especially a guy who's really is a power play specialist. So I'm impressed with a lot of these guys. Mason Salquist with 4 points on the year, and you're getting production up and down the lineup. It's going to be a little bit similar to what we talked about with the Minnesota Wild. Is I think the Huskies have a little bit more of the big guns that are contributing, but at the same time, they're getting depth scoring all the way through the lineup, and it's just been very impressive. Speaking of being impressive, David Rennick has 9 games played to his credit, over 517 minutes of action for him this season in a Husky sweater. Only allowed 12 goals in those 9 games for a 1.39 goals against average and a 9.44 save percentage for a 7-2 record. 203 saves on the year for him. What more can you ask from a guy that we've talked about him so much, about him jokingly stopping the first goal of the game, doing all the things right that he had to do to be a consistent goaltender. And don't want to speak too much onto that because goaltending is a fickle thing. But David Rennick, looking like a well-deserved draft pick selection for the Los Angeles Kings. Let's just put it that way. So if I'm not mistaken here, as I'm looking at the shot charts here, the Huskies outshooting their opponents by, I believe it's 30, exactly 30 shots comparatively. And that margin starting off early in the hockey game. And that's something that we talked about St. Cloud a couple years ago. They really struggled with this young group of trying to grab the game early. Shot differential 106 to 69 in favor of St. Cloud State. So, and then pretty even, a +2 advantage in period number 2, and then a -9 differential in period number 3, and even in overtime. So, but goal-wise, 38 to 14 are the Huskies in that advantage right there. So, a plus whatever it is, if I can do math quickly here, I believe that's plus 20. I just had it in my head, 14, 24, 34, 24. It'd be 24. I wanted to say 14 for some reason, but I knew that wasn't right. So, as always, math, not my strong suit, but nonetheless, the Huskies sitting at 8-2 overall and 2-0 in conference play. So, and like you mentioned, that 6-2 record in non-conference play, propelling them to a very good start to the season so far. Let's see if they can continue it on down the road. As we move over to the women's hockey side, again, eerily similar in the way that these games ended up. Let's start on Friday night, that 3-2 win over the Mavericks. And Mavericks getting on the board first, and when I say first, it was just moments into the second period, and a good response. Mackenzie Borgeret unassisted on the power play, 2 minutes and 54 seconds into period 2 to tie that game at 1. Mankato responded in the third period with a power play goal of their own to go up 2-1, but then it was Emma Gentry from Taylor Lind and Nina Newland that tied that hockey game well into the early stages of period number 3. Then it was a nice give and go. Taylor Lind to Mackenzie Borgeret. A really nice seeing eye shot. Good call by Mr. Nick Maxon on the broadcast there. If you haven't gotten a chance to check that out, for a 3-2 overtime win. A great win. Great home win. Sonia Hola, like we mentioned, was fantastic between the pipes for this women's hockey club. And then on Saturday, again, a 4-1 win. It's so eerily similar the way these games were. But nonetheless, Nina Newland was the one to strike first in the second period from Emma Gentry to put the Huskies up 1-0. But then it was Kelsey King, a great hockey player for Mankato there, has been a staple in that lineup for quite a while. She answered late in the second period to tie that game at 1, but then Emma Gentry, with less than a minute to play in period 2 from Taylor Lind, making that game 2-1. Entering period number 3, and then it was all Huskies. Addie Scrivener and Kenzie Wiley both adding markers before the 5-minute mark of period number 3. Allie Cornelius, Mackenzie Borgeret twice, and Courtney Hall were able to tally assists in that contest in the 4-1 win. And like we mentioned, it was 38 of 39 saves for Sonia Hull and this women's hockey group. That these are the teams that they definitely have to handle. Your Bemidji States, your Mankatos, your St. Thomases, even potentially Duluth, throw them in there. And then if you can maybe grab one against those top echelon teams, your Minnesotas, your Wisconsins, your Ohio States, that's the stepping stone that we're trying to go through right now with the women's hockey program. But a much more complete effort, a very balanced offense, a very balanced effort, a great defensive effort for this group, the way that they kept plays to the outside, and still looking to suppress that shot volume a little bit more, but nonetheless keeping par with the teams that they are playing that are kind of in that similar echelon for them right now as far as the WCHA is concerned. Winning percentage approaching .500 now. They're at .450, so again, nice to see that climb as well. And Taylor Lind, a player who had a couple of assists in that original hockey game on Friday night in 10 games played. She's a point-per-game player. 2 goals, 8 assists, 10 points, really turning herself into a setup player. And we saw that a couple of years ago when she came into her freshman season. She was a player that had a lot of natural skill and natural talent, but really was looking for a little bit more poise with the puck, a little bit more, when you think about a playmaker like Taylor Lind has developed into, you think about the way that they're able to kind of slow the game down, control the pace, and let the play develop in front of them, or create that opportunity to find their teammate backdoor or a nice drop pass and make plays like that. She has a nice bit of speed to her as well, and as a 7% shooting percentage on 28 shots to go along with it means she's also creating offense, even though she only has 2 goals to her credit. So she leads the team in points. It's been a fantastic year for her. for her. Emma Gentry leading the team in goals with 5 goals. Hey, if you're going to have someone that's going to be a setup player like Taylor Lind, you're going to have to have another player like Emma Gentry who's able to put the puck in the net as well. So, and 48 shots for her this season over 10 games. How about that? I believe that would be 4.8 shots a game. If I can do math, that's probably wrong. I'm sure it is. And I believe one of the best shooting percentages on the team yet, just approaching just under 11% shooting percentage. So good for her. Mackenzie Bourgeray looking very comfortable with 7 points as well. Only 12 shots to her credit, so maybe a little bit more shooting prowess expected for her, but that alludes to a 25% shooting percentage for her. So I think that you're starting to see a player, Mackenzie Bourgeray, kind of reminds me a little bit of Klara Himlarova in her early seasons with the Huskies, where she was able to produce a little bit, but just looking to kind of round out that 200-foot game for her. But nonetheless, sitting tied for second on the team in points is very impressive for the sophomore forward there. Yanina Newland doing her thing, 6 points in 8 games for her, 29 shots. Again, a lot of shot value from some of these players up in there. Allie Cornelius, 30 shots for her. There's a player that's really developed on that front as well. Olivia Savar, 28 shots for her as well. And how about Tatum Geyer on the back end there with 4 points to her credit, looking good on the assist column as well too. So McKenna Westlow, Courtney Hall also rounding out that top piece. Klara Himlarova, 2 points, only 4 games to her credit though, so hopefully we can find her back in that column as well too. And like we mentioned, it's good to see Sonia Hola and her goaltending structure be able to kind of pull through pivotally, because as we know, Emma Paluzny has been a staple on that back end, along with Janine Alder for a little bit before Janine graduated her senior season. Emma Paluzny has been that rock solid goaltender, but you also have to be worried about the future. And don't forget, you also have Carly Reese in there that is able to backstop the team as well when it is needed. So when you look at this women's hockey club, I'm excited for them to get a nice little sweep on home ice. They've got a good test against the Golden Gophers group. In fact, why don't we pull up that schedule for you here so I can try to get those dates correct if I can for our listeners here. It is going to be a Friday-Saturday matchup, November 19th at the Herbrooks National Hockey Center. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Central Time, and then 3 o'clock on Saturday down in Minneapolis at Ritter Arena. So the Huskies looking to try to climb to 500 against a tough opponent in the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Finally, speaking of some Minnesota stuff, let's talk very briefly about the Minnesota Wild, who are currently, at the time of recording here on Monday night, sitting first in the Central Division and third in the West, only behind the Oilers and Flames in the Pacific, with 16 points, 8 wins, 3 losses in 11 games played, 37 goals for, and 36 goals against, a goal differential of +1. Not often you see a team with only a +1 goal differential sit first in the Central. Granted, it is early in the season, but nonetheless, this Minnesota group setting some extremely crazy records, if you will. The Wild leading the NHL with 7 one-goal wins and 7 come-from-behind wins. I mean, we had that game the other night against Pittsburgh. That was a barn burner, to say the least, a game that the Wild really had no business winning. But sometimes, as a broadcaster I work with says so eloquently, sometimes teams are too dumb to realize that they're actually supposed to be out of games, and they just find a way and find a bounce. And you talk about, a player that has really stepped up. I like the way, I know Dean Evison has taken some flack in the past couple of years, but the ability to roll all 4 lines, especially in pivotal moments like that. Ryan Hartman, 6 goals, 1 assist, 7 points for him. A guy that I know he's a first-round selection, but I don't know that he's a player that anyone would have had him pegged as a player that was going to be that clutch reformer, if you will. But hey, depth scoring is depth scoring. The Wild are certainly getting it. Marcus Foligno, 8 points for him on the season. Kirill Kaprizov, some people say he sucks or he's not producing. He's got 9 points in 11 games, tied for the team lead, 2 goals, 7 assists. Identical to Matt Dumba on the back end, who's +3 on the season as well. He had an empty netter against the Islanders on Sunday night. Matt Zuccarello staying par with Kirill Kaprizov, but only 7 games. He's a point-per-game player. In fact, the only point-per-game player that the Minnesota Wild have, 7 points in 7 games there. So Joel Eriksson Ek has been, I wouldn't say relatively quiet, but kind of returned to his more defensive form here. But nonetheless, he reminds me of a Mikko Koivu-esque player in a sense, but a good 200-foot game and a very reliable centerman on that back end. Jonas Brodin, 6 points for him as well. Jared Spurgeon starting to heat up a little bit, as well as Brandon Duheim, a guy that I really like his style of play. He kind of reminds me of the winger version of Nico Sturm and the way that He's gritty and tenacious on pucks, and he also has a little bit of skill to him for a bottom six forward. And he's a guy that I think he's well deserving of his Minnesota Wild sweater. So on the back end, of course, good contributions. That third pairing, Kulikov, John Merrill looking good. Combined between the two of them, combining their plus minuses, +8 on the season between the two of them. You definitely can't complain about what this defensive core has brought. And the rotation of depth, especially with a little bit of COVID pieces, guys getting called up, Adam Beckman unfortunately being sent down, as well as Kalen Addison, and they're guys that they were essentially expressly told, hey, you're going to be back in a Minnesota Wild uniform soon. And the way that they produced, it should only be a matter of time, I would think, for those guys, especially with the expiring contracts of Victor Rask, and then the question marks regarding Jordan Greenway, who just started practicing today. Nick Bukestad, looking good in the past couple of games. Only 2 points to his credit this year, but looking all right. Then Kyle Rouse, the guy that's been sitting in the press box. So Cam Talbot, a 2.85 goals against average and a 904 save percentage. I think he'd like that to be a little bit higher, but 7 wins to his credit. So getting the result the team is looking for. And then Capo Kakinen, 1-1 on the season. Not the greatest of numbers, 3.63 and an 8.60 save percentage for him, but a very solid win for him against the Islanders the other night. Would not be shocked if he maybe gets the start against Arizona to continue that stretch of confidence and kind of get him back into the rotation. It's hard sometimes when you're sitting on the bench for long stretches, especially as a goaltender as well. And I think that Capo Kakinen, this is a good season for him to just continue to see if he can find some traction and momentum and a little bit of confidence and consistency that we saw with the record-setting 9 games in a row that we have been accustomed to. But again, looked very solid against the New York Islanders as well. So the Minnesota Wild, as we kind of take a look at what they've got going on the docket, like we mentioned, Wednesday they're in Arizona. The night after they're going to be in Vegas, and then I believe it's going to be on Saturday they're actually going to be in Seattle before returning at home against San Jose on the 16th of November. So definitely keep an eye on this Minnesota Wild club and what they've got going on. And with that being said, I know that was a little bit longer, but I think we were doing all right. We're just coming up on just over half an hour, so I think that's going to do it for the main portion of the show, and we're going to send it over to the Healthy Scratch interview portion of the segment with 2 men's hockey freshman players. And welcome into the Healthy Scratch interview segment. Noah Grant here doing this interview solo. It was a lot of fun having these 2 guys on the show, Josh Luedtke and Mason Salquist joining me, a defenseman and a forward respectively, joining me on the show. They were a lot of fun, very happy, very pretty jovial guys, and very good hockey players on the ice as well too, fitting in very seamlessly with this men's hockey team. We talked a little bit about their kind of off-season habits, what they were up to this summer, a little bit about what it was like to play for St. Cloud State, kind of talk through their first 10 games, a little bit about the Nick Perbix Gopher incident as well. They offer their perspective and their player perspective on what that was like going through that as well, and kind of some childhood memories and what it meant for them growing up in North Dakota and Minnesota respectively. So without further ado, Mason Salquist and Josh Luedtke. Into the Huskies Warming House podcast, the Healthy Scratch interview segment. Excited to have a pair of freshman hockey players from the men's hockey team. It's Josh Luedtke and Mason Salquist that are joining me, a defenseman and a forward respectively. Boys, how are we doing on this Monday evening?
We're doing really good. Thanks for having us, Noah.
Yeah, excited to have you guys, and an exciting start to the season for the men's hockey team. 8-2 overall. You guys have been a part of that, of course. Mason, I kind of wanted to start with you, and I'm actually going to start with a question from my co-host Nick Maxon, who of course isn't joining us this evening. You've got 4 points on the season, a little bit of production. You were kind of in and out of the lineup early, but it kind of seemed like you found your footing early here. What do you attribute to kind of your success early in this season?
Yeah, just my teammates. They've been really welcoming early, and it's been a lot of fun so far, and they made it easy for me to transfer over into the program. So
yeah, you're a guy that I guess it's safe to say, Mason, you've kind of been invested hockey since before you can remember. Isn't there a story, if I'm not mistaken, about a certain bedtime ritual you had before you had to go to sleep when you were a little kid?
Yeah, there was. So every night I wouldn't go to bed without my skates tied on my feet. So my parents at the night would have to climb up and untie my skates so I wouldn't cut myself. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Okay. I got to ask, have you outgrown the trend or is it still working for you?
Yeah, I don't remember doing that, but my parents say it's true, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe Josh will have to help you tie your skates before the pre-games when you guys go on your next road trip. Josh, again, pleasure to welcome you in as well. Like we mentioned before the show, you're a little bit outnumbered by a couple of North Dakota boys here. You're a Minnetonka native, and this is another Nick Maxon question. You actually, I believe, played with teammate Joey Molinar, and then of course Jimmy Schultz, a Minnetonka native. What was the transition like to St. Cloud State following in those footsteps?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like Mason said, the guys are super welcoming right from the get-go, and we have a really good group of guys, so that makes everything easier. And yeah, knowing Joe beforehand definitely helped a lot too. He's someone who I'd played together with for, I think it was either 10 or 11 straight years in youth hockey, and all throughout high school together. And then I worked out with Jimmy Schultz this summer too, and I've had a relationship with him. So it's awesome to have those guys and those connections going into it for sure.
Yeah, we had Jimmy on the show about probably close to a year ago, and he was just an absolute blast to have on it. Just the consummate professional and captain, of course, in his time at St. Cloud State. Josh, I guess I got to ask, since you played with Joey Molinar, you're a D-man yourself. Joey's a bit of a forward. One-on-one coming down the ice, are you going to stop him every time, or what's that battle looking like?
Oh, yeah, he's not getting past me.
No strengths for Joey Molinar whatsoever, apparently. And I wanted to ask Josh, speaking of kind of the lineup card and the practice situation, we've got 9 defensemen on the roster that have played in at least a pair of games this season for the Huskies. Of course, you're a freshman coming into that fold. What has it been like kind of going through that competitive process and trying to stick in the lineup?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of our strengths. We have a super deep group of defensemen, and it's super competitive. So like you said, even in practice, we're only going to get better from it, all of us. So I think it's really beneficial for everyone. And obviously you just want to do your best to contribute and work your hardest to help the team out. So I think that's something that's been really awesome for us.
Well, we're happy to have you here at St. Cloud State. And it's kind of an interesting road, especially with the COVID year that your guys' freshman group has had to go in. You've got the 5th-year senior that seems like he's about 35, and Kevin Fitzgerald that welcomes you into the door. But before you even get there, Mason, I kind of wanted to ask you, and Josh, feel free to chime in after Mason's answer here. Your actual tour of the university, I believe, wasn't it virtual with Nick Oliver, if I'm not mistaken, kind of over Zoom or FaceTime or something like that?
Yeah, so it was right when COVID hit, our season ended, and I got a phone call from our coach and general manager and said St. Cloud's interested and would like to take you on a virtual visit. So I got in contact with them, and I talked to Nick Oliver first, and he's just said that we'll do a FaceTime like tour of the locker room and then a Zoom through campus. So that's how it worked, and it was unique, but I enjoyed it.
So the honest question, Mason, is Nick Oliver a fantastic showman and like a host of the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center? Do you think he'd look good in a tuxedo? How did he do?
He did well. I mean, the FaceTime was a little blurry, but I've seen it all before. So, I mean, I knew what it was. The only thing I didn't see was the gym. So he just mainly kind of showed me that. So it was nice.
Yeah, nice to see the addition of the gym. Of course, when I was there 2 years ago, that was when those renovations were just getting finished. So it's a fantastic setup that you guys have there. Josh, for you, when did St. Cloud State come calling? Of course, you had a pretty good career in the USHL as well before that. When did you know that the Huskies not only were on your radar, but you knew that you were going to become a Husky?
Yeah, it was last summer actually that I decided to come to St. Cloud, and I kind of gone through the recruiting process before and had a established relationship with Larson and Coach Oliver, and talked to Coach Shayak too. And they're just all unbelievable coaches. And I think a big thing for me that's super nice is that it's so close to home. It's only an hour away, and my family gets to come watch, which is super awesome. It's awesome to have them at games. And obviously winning the national championship too is something I've always dreamed of. So we're hoping to accomplish that this year.
Yeah, definitely. I have a team that has a good chance to do that, I believe. And I think a lot of fans definitely agree with that too. Let's kick it back to some high school days, shall we? Both of you guys are actually respective champions in your respective states. Like I mentioned, Mason, North Dakota veteran on a Red River team. And for those of you who don't know North Dakota high school hockey, the Grand Forks teams are just, you guys are rigged. I'm just going to put it that way. And then Josh, a little bit, I don't want to say more of an uphill battle, but we all know what Minnesota high school hockey is. I'll give them that. I guess if we can start there, also Josh playing in the CCM NIT tournament. I also played in the same tournament, Josh. So I'd like to think that you and I are pretty much the same hockey player. But we'll let that slide. Anyway, Mason, let's start with you. Red River, going back 2016, the year after my senior year, state champ, tournament MVP in your sophomore year. Also, I believe on Team North Dakota that year, on that same team the following year. What was that experience like? Didn't you guys go undefeated that year, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, we had a really good group. I mean, the state there's a lot of competitive teams in there, and we just found a way to be on top at the end of the year. And we ended up having a good run in state, and championship game was one of our closest games is 4-3. And I think it was like the only game we got outshot in. So it was a lot of fun to come out on top.
Well, I'm certainly not going to complain when you beat Bismarck High on any given night. So you can definitely continue that trend all day. 150 points in 80 games for you in your 3 years at Red River. So pretty impressive there. Before I kind of go over to Josh's story, I also wanted to ask you, Mason, you spent some time with Janesville and the Jets for 24 games before finally getting the call up to the Fargo Force. Kind of going back there, though, your road to the Force really wasn't easy. You were cut 3 times from that camp. You finally make the team, and then also starting 14 games, then you break your tibia, in mid-December, and you're out for 2 months there. Going through that process in those couple of years of getting cut, finally getting the call up, then knowing you're playing well, having an injury like that, and then knowing you're trying to bounce back and then make a Division I program. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it was an uphill battle. I enjoyed my time in Janesville. I signed a tender with them my senior year and ended up playing okay. I thought I probably could have played a little better, but it was a nice spot to dip my toe in the water and see what juniors is all about. And around like Christmas time, beginning of December, I woke up to a phone call from my Janesville coach, and Fargo said that Fargo wanted me to come up and play until Christmas break, and then I'd end up going back to Janesville. And I ended up playing well in Fargo, and I ended up Christmas break, first day, woke up from a phone call, and I was staying in Fargo the rest of the year. So it was a lot of fun. I was excited to get that phone call. And then with that injury, it was tough because I know I was playing well and I was climbing the ladder, working my way up. And then having that happen it was hard, but I battled through it and tried to play through it, but couldn't do it and ended up not playing again the rest of the season. So.
Yeah, we're definitely going to touch a little bit more on your Fargo Force days. 51 points in 92 games in that tenure. Not too shabby, as they would say. Josh, I kind of leaving you hanging here, so I want to make sure I get some of those high school questions. And I got to pull up your piece here. I think it's 2018, the AA title, and 73 points in 67 games in your Minnetonka high school career. What was that like, winning a state championship really on kind of the ultimate stage as far as high school hockey is concerned across the country?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I think growing up in Minnesota and playing high school hockey, that's something you dream about since you're a kid. So it was super special. And part of the best part about it is that you're playing with guys you've played mite hockey with growing up all the way through to high school. So it was really special for us. And we had a really close group, and it was super fun to finish it off that way for sure. And another cool part of it was that during our section tournament to get to that, we were playing Holy Family, playing against Zemer actually in the section championship at Mariucci. And we were down by 1 and tied it up with, I think it was 3 or 2 seconds left to go to overtime, and then win in overtime to go to state. So we were right there, and then we were able to win the state tournament. So it was awesome for sure.
Yeah, one of those things I can only dream. Like I said, I played against Neil Pionk once against Hermantown when they had all those runs. I think it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, the same year that Tommy Novak did the bazooka at center ice to cap that one off for St. Thomas. But nonetheless, Josh, weren't you actually a lacrosse player too in high school? And if so, were you any good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was very good, but I definitely liked playing lacrosse. I was more of a defensive midfield player, and I kind of got into lacrosse because my brother actually had started playing in middle school. So it was fun because a lot of the guys who played hockey also played lacrosse. So it was a fun way for us to stay in shape and stay competitive for sure.
Well, not only are you competitive, of course, you have some leadership roles to your belt as well, playing in Des Moines for the Buccaneers for a couple of years there, over 100 games and 45 points in the back end. Pretty impressive. And captain in your second year there, but really it was your fourth year, but really your third year. Kind of hard to just go look at his stats on Elite Prospects, and it's easier explained then. But how did you enjoy your time in Des Moines?
Yeah, I love my time in Des Moines. We had a really special group last year, close group of guys. And it was an awesome experience to be able to play juniors there. And I really enjoyed my time there for sure. I think one of the cool parts about it is we play in like one of the oldest rinks in the USHL. So we have an old barn and the fans really get into it there. So it's an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah, it's definitely seen a couple of pictures of that, and you're right. It has character. Let's just put it that way. A bit of a newer barn, I would say, in Fargo. Actually, one of my best friends is actually the head rink manager at Shields Arena there in Fargo. Mason, you of course just followed up in the footsteps of Spencer Meyer, who was there the year before you were in Fargo, and then of course you played with a guy by the name of Jack Peart, who I heard he was Mr. Hockey somewhere. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but successful at something, I guess. And then I think Tristan Brose, Aaron Huglin, and Brennan Boynton, who are all in Fargo, and they're all with the Golden Gophers now as well. What was it like playing with Jack in Fargo, and how sweet was it to beat the three boys in the Golden Gophers once you finally got to the big show here?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun playing with Jack. He's a great guy and great teammate, and it was nice to build a little friendship before coming here, and now we're roommates, and I really like it, and we're having a lot of fun, and beating those guys on the Gophers felt great. Nothing like it. I actually got a text from Moines at the end of after the game. He's like, "Really?" I was like, "Sorry, man, but I had to do it to you." So it was nice, but I wish we could have got the sweep, but it happens like that, so it's all right.
I guess while we're on the topic, this is not in the list of questions that either of us have, but I suppose we really haven't gotten a chance to ask the player perspective, and I don't want to put you guys in an interesting spot, but I am curious. Nick Perbix wheels around the net on that Saturday night. What do you guys see from your perspective? What are your thoughts there? Whoever wants to go first, whoever wants to take that ball head on.
I guess I can talk about it first, but at least from my angle, it definitely looked like a penalty, and obviously you don't want the game to end like that after we climbed back and tied it up late with that power play goal. And it's definitely a rivalry for us. It was homecoming weekend, so we obviously wanted to get the win for our fans. So it definitely hurt a little bit, but we're just going to use it as motivation going the rest of the way.
Yeah, certainly a great bounce back weekend against Wisconsin the following series. Mason, I guess to follow up on that, a lot of people see, of course, what's on the ice. They see the reaction, they see what's on the cameras, but no one but the 25 guys or so in the locker room can really explain what it is after that. Like Josh said, a tough loss, but what was the message from Brett Larson in the room? Do you happen to have any recollection of that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I thought we played a pretty good game, and it's never easy going out like that. I mean, I thought it was a penalty, but I guess the ref didn't see it like that. So it was definitely hard.
Yeah, it kind of was one of those that from the fan perspective, watching on TV, it was in slow motion, and it was like, yeah, might have missed one there, but nonetheless, I digress. We've definitely talked about it more than enough on the show, but like we said, we haven't gotten the player perspective a little bit quite yet. So we're just curious on that one. Also kind of following up on the weekend prior against Mankato, Mason, you score your first goal in a Huskies uniform and end up having the game winner on that Saturday night. I believe ended up giving the puck to your parents, if I'm not mistaken.
I haven't yet, but I'm thinking about putting in a little Christmas gift for them. I don't think they know about it yet, but I don't know. They could have read about it. I still got it. So, yeah, I think they're going to get it sometime. So,
yeah, just a special moment. I kind of wanted to follow up. This is kind of a trend that we do a little bit on this show, usually asking players, especially players who are kind of in their senior years, about if they remember their first goal, their first point, who it was against, that sort of thing. You guys only have a couple games under your belt, so I want to test your memory a little bit just to make sure. Like you mentioned, first goal for you, Mason, against Mankato. Your first assist, essentially your first collegiate point, who is it against, and who was the goal scorer?
it was against St. Thomas, and Brendan Bushy scored it. It was a secondary assist.
Yes, it was the 10th goal of the game, 10-2. I wanted to ask too. Also, I believe was the first point for Jack Peart, if I'm not mistaken. So did they split the puck in half for you guys, or how did that work?
We actually didn't get it. So, and I think it was actually a second point, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. But
yeah, I definitely could be wrong too. I just sleep deprived college schedules, man. We're all just hanging in there slowly but surely. And then Josh, if we're flipping it over to you here, I got to find your piece too. Your first goal, just to make sure, who'd you score it against?
It was against the Gophers. I mean, it was against the Badgers. So
I was gonna say your first.
Yeah, maybe I don't remember it all that
well. you're just a natural goal scorer in the making from the back end there, Josh. Your first assist though was against Minnesota. Do you remember who you ended up assisting on the tally?
Yeah, that must have been the one I was thinking of. But Henches was the one who buried that after I feathered one through to the net.
Yeah, Easton Brodzinski had the other assist on that one too. Just making sure you guys are still with us. Let's talk a little bit about the season. You guys get to pull on the Cardinal red and black for the first time this season. For each of you respectively, Josh, we'll start with you. What was it like to play in that first game for the Huskies and play in a Division I hockey game?
It was an unreal experience for sure. My first time throwing on the jersey was versus St. Thomas at the Xcel Energy Center. So I think that was an awesome experience to play your first game, just because it's where the Wild play and it's an awesome rink. So it was a super cool experience.
Yeah, kind of interesting to think that that's not your first time at the Xcel Energy Center, and it's also been a lot more packed the last time that you potentially played there as well. But nonetheless, I digress. Mason, same question for you. First time pulling on the jersey, did you have a little bit of nerves, or did you kind of settle in once you got through warmups?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of nerves going in warm-ups, but once the puck dropped, it's just another hockey game, and it was a lot of fun. I love representing the school and throwing on that sweater.
Yeah, my co-host Nick Maxon, Mason, refers to you quite a bit as a Bulldog, and then our other follower Caleb Peabody likes to remind him that no, you're actually a Husky. But he's talking about your play style. But nonetheless, Nick also has another question for you, Mason, and he wants to know what have you learned, or what part of your game has really grown these 10 games in your collegiate career?
Yeah, probably just the speed of the game has been the biggest adjustment, and then what I've kind of learned is just defensive zone structure and just closing, killing play and going north with it. So
yeah, when kind of flipping it back a little bit, I don't know if you remember your first practice or your first couple of practices. Was there a particular guy, a particular player, or a particular attribute of those practices that really stood out from where you came in the USHL?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. I mean, everyone's just elite hockey players here, and it's a lot of fun being with them and being in the same locker room. And it's just a whole different game. I think it's a lot quicker, a lot faster, and just a lot stronger men out there.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not my men's rec league. I'll put it to you that way. Josh, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit, another question from Nick Maxon, kind of similar to the question I asked Mason. If you watch filming yourself on TV, if you're sitting down with Brett Larson or whoever, how would you describe your style of play and what you bring to the table for the team?
Yeah, I think for me personally, my strengths are probably my skating ability, and then I'm more of a puck moving defenseman, try to make clean breakouts and get the puck up the ice. And I think sitting down with Coach Shayak, one of the things I've been working on is just walking the blue line, making sure can sift pucks through the net, find lanes, and in the defensive end, just closing on plays as quick as I can, getting my box outs and my glues along the wall, stuff like that.
If I'm not mistaken, both of you guys, not the tallest guys in the world, I believe both 5'9". Mason, we have you listed at 172 and Josh at 176. So pretty much identical in that respect, except Mason shoots left and Josh shoots right. Josh, being a defenseman who I guess by today's standard would be still on the smaller side, but not by a whole lot. What was that adjustment like, going into the corner for the first time against, guys who are, like Mason mentioned, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit taller?
Yeah, definitely going from the USHL to college, the guys are definitely bigger, faster, stronger. And I think going into battles, you got to go in with the mentality that you're going to come out with the puck no matter what, no matter how small you are. So I think that's the mindset I like to have going into it, and just no matter how small I am, just work out of it.
So I got to ask too, I'm sure you guys have lined up plenty of times, but Mason versus Josh, one-on-one small area battle in the corner. Who wins that battle? Who's coming out? Is Mason scoring a goal, or is that puck getting chipped off the glass every time there?
Oh, that puck's at the back of the net for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's going off the glass.
Sounds like a good Husky production segment in the making to me. But anyway, well, let's say you guys are friends for the time being. You traveled to Colorado College last weekend. You're on the road. Let's say you guys are sitting in the same bus seat, if you will. What are some essential tunes? Maybe Josh, we'll start with you. What's on the playlist on that road trip? What's on the movie carousel? And does Mason agree with your choices, do you think?
I think for me personally, I like country music a lot. So maybe it'd be some Morgan Wallen or Luke Combs. And as far as a movie goes, it's probably something Will Ferrell, maybe Semi-Pro or Talladega Nights.
Yeah, well, both of you guys are on fire. Let's just put it that way. Mason, does he have good selections, or do we got to switch it up a little bit here?
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. So it's good.
That's fair. I figured being a North Dakota boy, you might be all right with the country selections. Similar to myself. I got to ask though, being a Grand Forks kid, I'm assuming you grew up an effing Hawks fan, as they say. Of course, they weren't the Fighting Hawks back when we were kids, but nonetheless, Ralph Engelstad Arena, an incredible building. You had mentioned somewhere too about knowing that if you weren't going to play for the Fighting Hawks, how cool it would be to play in front of family and friends, even on the road, and potentially beat North Dakota in that building. How much are you looking forward to playing North Dakota, and do you have any support for the Fighting Hawks at this point anymore?
Not anymore, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm really excited. I got that game circled on my calendar, that's for sure, and it'll be a lot of fun to return home and play at the Ralph in front of friends and family. So
yeah, it should be good. Of course, North Dakota on the docket for 4 games a season, December 3rd and 4th at home at the Herbrooks National Hockey Center. And then at the end of January, I believe the 28th and 29th, if I'm not mistaken, up there in good old North Dakota in Grand Forks. I kind of wanted to ask you guys too, you mentioned getting the call in the summer and knowing that you guys were going to be at St. Cloud State. Josh, I'll start with you. Besides training, working out, what else were you up to this summer? Did you kick back, relax, have some downtime? Do you have a cabin in Minnesota? What were you up to?
Yeah, besides training and skating, I was able to enjoy some time on the lake. One of my best friends has a new wake setter boat that he got, so we do a little bit of wake surfing. He also has a cabin in Wisconsin, so we were able to go there a couple times. And our family actually got a puppy this summer too, so it was awesome to get to spend some time with the puppy before I left here.
We actually just got a Springer Spaniel, a 10-week-old Springer Spaniel a couple of weeks ago. What kind of puppy do you have, Josh?
He's a yellow lab puppy, and we named him Stanley after the Stanley Cup. So
okay,
he's a hockey dog.
Is he a hunting dog as well, or just a lab?
Just a lab. We'll see if he ever becomes a hunting dog, but for now, he's just a lab.
So you mentioned the boat as well too. Are you a big fisherman, or?
Yeah, I like to fish a lot too. We had a group of guys who'd we go on the docks at Lake Minnetonka, and we had a good bass fishing spot, so that was always a good time as well.
Josh, there's a guy by the name of Easton Brodzinski. Don't know if you've heard of him. If you ever want to go fishing, you should find that man, because he loves to fish to his heart's content. That's for sure. Mason, kind of a similar question. What were you up to this summer? Were you with family? Were you hanging out in Grand Forks, or did you happen to travel anywhere?
Yeah, I was mainly in Grand Forks. My family has a lake place by Detroit Lakes, so we normally go out there pretty much every weekend during the summer, and my sister got married early in the summer, so I had a wedding that I was in. So that was a lot of fun and exciting. But other than that, going to the lake and doing a little bit of golfing. So it was a lot of fun.
So how's the golf game looking? Are you a scratch golfer? Not so good?
No scratch golfer, but I'm all right. I'm okay. Not great, not bad.
Can you hit the ball straight? That's the biggest question.
Sometimes I can.
So you're like me, where you show up with 18 golf balls and leave with about 6. Okay, I feel that. I don't
like that.
I don't feel so bad anymore. Guys, once again, thanks so much for joining me. I only got a couple of questions for you before I let you guys go on your way. I know you guys are excited for the weekend series this weekend. Looking forward to the contest that you guys have. Nebraska Omaha is on the docket. Josh, let's start with you. What are you looking forward to the weekend series, and what's kind of been the message as you guys get ready to regroup?
Yeah, I think for us, it's just about getting better each and every game. I think we've played well, but I don't think we've put a full 60 minutes together yet of our best hockey, and that's something we want to do this weekend. We know Omaha is a big and a fast team, so we know we're going to have to bring our best game and go for 6 points this weekend.
Yeah, Mason, similar question. What are you looking forward to this weekend, and what do you think has been the biggest building block up to this point through the first 10 games for the team?
Yeah, just growing as a team and just taking it day by day and game by game, just like Lued said. So it's going to be a fun weekend, and hopefully we come out on top.
Yeah, it should be a good one. My final question for you guys, Josh, I want to start with you. It actually has to do with a guy that you're usually in front of defending, although it seems like he hasn't really needed the help the way that he's been playing. That's David Rennick, who's been in the pipes for the large majority of the season. What have you noticed from him, both on the ice, but also, off the ice in the locker room, that one helps him kind of stay composed and have the season he's having? And number two, does he smile on the ice as much as I think he does, or off the ice as much as I think he does? Because he's probably the nicest guy on the planet.
Yeah. Like you said, he's an incredible guy. He's super nice to us and super welcoming right away. And on top of that, he's an incredible goalie. He's been unbelievable in the net for us this year, and that definitely gives a bunch of us a lot of confidence knowing we got him between the pipes, and you can't ask for a better teammate than him. So he's been awesome.
Is he a little more serious on the ice? I hear he gets pretty dialed in.
Oh yeah, he's pretty locked in when it comes to game days. So off the ice, he's a funny, goofy guy, but he's definitely focused and ready to go when it's time to go.
Yeah, well, hopefully you guys are focused and ready this weekend. Nebraska Omaha on the docket. Mason, my final question for you as well is on the forward side. Kind of, what is the message to the team? And also, speaking of leadership guys like David Rennick, is there one guy that kind of seems to be that vocal leader in the locker room, kind of in that upperclassmen group for you guys?
Yeah, I'd probably say Kevin Fitzgerald is pretty outspoken. So
funny guy.
He's a great guy. I love being around him every day. And it's just using our speed and getting pucks to the net and finding a way to put them in the back of the net. So
I did remember one more thing, Mason. Yeah, I don't know why you speaking made me think of it, but you mentioned, Mason, you're with Jack Peart in the roommate situation. Josh, I forgot to ask, are you with those guys as well, or are you located somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm a room down, and I'm with Ryan Roseborough, and he's a goofy guy. He's awesome. I love having him as a roommate. He's awesome. That's
a bit of a size mismatch there, Josh. I got to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got me beat, but it's all right.
Are you guys? Now I'm following up on questions like I normally do. Are you guys do you have chell tourneys at all? Do you guys hang out much? Are you competitive with each other? What's going on?
Yeah, we have some chell tourneys. Mason's comes over for those as well, and I'd like to say I'd come out on top, but I think Mason won the last one.
All right, Mason, what's your play style? Are you a good chell hockey player? I got to be honest. The new version of the game is, I don't know if you guys are playing chell 22, but I got to be honest. I think it's subpar to say the least, but that's my personal opinion. Mason, how is your play style? Is it better than subpar?
I'd probably say it's subpar. I'm not great, but I find a way to come out on top.
That kind of seems like anybody who plays chell. Josh will outshoot you by 22 and you'll win 2-1, and both of them be glitch goals. It's just, It's a mess, but nonetheless, hey, we'll take goals any way we can get them on the ice when you guys play Nebraska Omaha this weekend. Mason and Josh, best of luck, and thanks so much for stopping by on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, best of luck this weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Once again, just a ton of fun to have both of these guys on the show, and wishing them the best of luck. Guys that have competed very hard, like we had mentioned, to get into the lineup. Like we had also talked about, Mason with 4 points in 10 games, or through the first 10 games total, I guess, respectively. And then Josh Luedtke with 2 points on the back end as well. Nice to see both those guys get in the goal column early too. It's always nice to get that monkey off the back and feel like you can contribute and get a goal at the Division I level. So excited for both of those guys and what they've got going on. Like we mentioned, it's Nebraska Omaha who's going to be on the docket this week for the Huskies, and it's a game at home, and nice to see them return home for their first NCHC contest at the Herbrooks National Hockey Center. So taking a look at the NCHC there, 7:30 start time is going to be between number 1 St. Cloud and number 11 Omaha. And then on that Saturday for some NCHC hockey, it's going to be 6 o'clock, pretty akin to the normal start times for most of the Huskies hockey games at home moving forward. A couple other NCHC games to pay attention to. Colorado College, they're going to travel up to Amsoil Arena in Duluth and face off there. 6 o'clock start for them on Friday, and then on Saturday it's going to be a 6 o'clock start for them as well. A couple other NCHC games. Miami's going to host North Dakota at 6:05 p.m. on Friday, and then at 4:05 p.m. on Saturday due to that travel for North Dakota getting back there. So there's one to keep an eye on. And the last one of the week, Western Michigan and Denver are going to match up. Western Michigan is going to travel to Colorado. It's going to be an 8 o'clock Central Time start there on Friday, and a 7 o'clock Central Time, number 4 Western Michigan, number 24 Denver at Magnus Arena there in Denver, Colorado. So NCHC hockey finally around the corner, finally getting started, finally getting some points on the board for the victorious teams. And of course, hopefully our St. Cloud State Huskies can continue that trend off of a great weekend against Colorado College. And Mason and Josh certainly look to be a part of that in their freshman season. For Noah Grant, this has been the Huskies Warming House podcast, and we hope to see you soon in the den, like we had mentioned as well. The next upcoming portion should be a somewhat regular release time on Sunday with my co-host that's going to be helping me out this week, and Alex Micheletti. So you won't want to miss it, and stay tuned. We'll see you soon in the den.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Perbix!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
Kaprizov in for a chance to win it. He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real. Welcome to the NHL. A game winner.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.